All right, so everyone, once again, welcome to this December Practice Growth Program call for team members. And I had hoped for the call to be a little bit more interactive because my agenda was pretty straightforward, but I want to spend most of the time on number 4 of the agenda. So the first question was, where were you making progress from your last Practice Growth Program? And where are you kind of feeling like you're taking action, making traction? I was curious to hear what, from an individual's perspective, is your greatest win for the year. Now, if you are attending this via computer, you can also call in. If you look on the right hand of the dashboard, you can actually call in on the right-hand side where there's a phone number. So I would encourage you to go ahead and call in and share what your greatest win. What I wanted to do was talk to you for a few minutes about what you perceive to be the greatest obstacle was in your practice around 2 particular areas. Number 1 is implementation. And 2 is really kind of like the last one here. How do you deal with your lawyer? How do you talk to your lawyer when the lawyer's overwhelmed? Because if the lawyer's overwhelmed, they're going to cause a high level of stress for you. So I want to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about how to deal with your lawyer in particular and how to keep your lawyer focused, because I will quickly concede that in most practices, the most powerful focusing tool to the lawyer is their team leader or their key assistant. And you sometimes fail to appreciate the incredible power and influence that you have in the role of helping keep your lawyer focused. Now, the main reason that I really like to bring this up is not so much for the lawyer's benefit, it's really for your benefit. And kind of, I know Whitney doesn't have any children. I know Lauren has children. I don't know if anybody else on the call has children like Lisa. But when the kids at home are behaving, life seems to work well. My experience is for a lot of team leaders, when the lawyers are behaving, life works really well for the team leaders and the key assistants. So I want to spend a few minutes just kind of diving in and talking about that particular topic. Terrific. So, and Lauren, I know you and I have been friends for a very long period of time, and you have worked with Peter, and you've done a tremendous job. So I'm just going to talk to you for a moment about this. And we're going to really try and do it from 2 perspectives. I don't know Lisa that well. Cora, I don't know well. I obviously know Whitney a little bit. So let's just talk for a few minutes. When your attorney Peter is focused, what's life like?
Oh, it's wonderful. When he's focused, everything runs really well around here. It really does. But when he's overwhelmed, everything just seems to, my job just gets so much harder. It really does, because I have to stay on top of him to stay focused and to produce what I need out of him so I can do what I need to do. And
Yeah.
it turns into like last minute things, like the client is walking through the door and we're still printing the trust because there were customizations that needed to be done that never got to, and just stupid stuff like that. And I'm just, it makes me want to pull my hair out sometimes. But when things are running smoothly and he has time to do what he's supposed to do and he keeps on top of his calendar, it makes everybody's life so much easier.
Yeah, it's so there are 3. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. There's 3 behaviors that I see lawyers engage in when they're overwhelmed. One you've already described, which is very little strategic thinking. Everything is reactive, last-minute crisis management. So it's just like what you described, hey, look, the client's coming in the door. Oh, I didn't tell you they'd be here at 2 o'clock. Oh, I thought I sent you an email. They're here at 2 o'clock. We need to go ahead and execute, get these plans. So they start to do extremely reactive behaviors, which cause stress for everybody. Number 2, they do what I call start-stop behaviors. And they almost are spastic in that they start and stop something, then they start something else, and they stop something. It's like almost like a kid with attention deficit disorder with too much caffeine. They're really, really bouncing all over the place. And the third thing is their ability to communicate about what they need is very, very limited, and they do a lot more drive-by delegation, where they just drop stuff on your desk and give you half pieces of information, and then come back and say, why is this not done? What happened to this? Where's it at? Which only causes you not only to pull your hair out, but to feel a little bit like a pinball machine inside a pinball. So there are probably 3 or 4 ways for you to help, everyone on the call to help manage your lawyer and keep your lawyer focused. And I want to talk about it from multiple perspectives. We got Lauren. Well, definitely get Lauren's feedback on this, because she's probably the most, I've probably had the longest relationship with her, and I have complete confidence in her insight on this. I want to talk about it from a few perspectives from my experience practicing, because I've got 20 years plus behind me as a practicing lawyer, both in litigation and estate planning. And then talk a little bit from an advocate's perspective about some of the tools that are available and how you could perhaps communicate to your lawyer in a way they won't be offended. They'll understand that you're trying to help them. So, Lauren, is there anything that you want to say about that before I dive into this a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that in some respects, Peter and I have a very intuitive relationship, and I can tell when he's overwhelmed, and he can tell when I'm overwhelmed, which is typically a reaction to his overwhelm. But I can just walk into his office and say, this is not working. We have to, figure something else out here, because I'm ready to pull my hair out. And he's the kind of guy that will just sit down and say, okay, what can we do to make this better? Now, will he follow through? Probably not. So the cycle tends to reappear. It'll get better for a little while, and then he'll slip back into his old, patterns, and then we go through the same thing again. And it hasn't helped that we've been trying to get an associate in here to take over a lot of Peter's meetings and things, and it seems like we can't find anybody to stick around. So that doesn't help, because I think he is in overwhelm a lot of the time, because he's a solo practitioner. And, in order for us to have the kind of cash flow that we want, he needs to have so many meetings in a week, and I think it's, it's overwhelming for him.
Got it. So, and you and Peter have been in the Practice Growth Program for an extraordinarily long period of time.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I went to Hebrew school, and I was in it for 4 years, and, in Hebrew kindergarten. And finally, my parents said, okay, you don't have to.
Well, so you said a couple of things there that were very brilliant. So for those of you, and I also want to welcome TJ from Patty Elrod Hills Firm, just joined the call. So hey, TJ. There are a couple things there. So if you're looking, and Laura, don't hesitate to correct me on this, but if you're looking, one of the things that your lawyer will always look for you will be looking first and foremost for you to tell them the truth.
Mhm.
And when sometimes you may actually have to, and I know, Whitney, I know you're on the call, but you can't speak, and I think you're doing that on purpose, by the way.
Doesn't own a
You know,
phone.
you know, um, um, you know, even with Whitney, who's bashful, uh, you know, her lawyer, Lance, totally trusts her. Sometimes the ability to communicate to the lawyer in a way that the lawyer can hear you is really sometimes all you need to do. So one of the really great things that Lauren said is a great question. So those of you that are taking notes or paying attention, if you're trying to help your lawyer and your lawyer looks out of control, especially either on Monday morning or Friday afternoon, you know, just saying, so let me ask you a question, and you can phrase it just like this. Do you have permission to ask you a question? And the fact that you phrase a question like that will immediately make them freeze and pay complete attention to you, like, uh-oh, what's going on? And you will get their complete attention. And most of you know keeping the lawyer's complete attention is very difficult because, you know, they have a tendency to, you know, be like at a dog, you know, at a park chasing squirrels up every tree. They have a tendency to be highly distractible. So, and you could simply follow it up with the second question, which is, are you overwhelmed right now? Now, more than likely, they'll take their breath and say, yeah, hell yeah, I'm overwhelmed. I'm like losing my mind. I'm crazy. Now, Lauren and I know Whitney have read the book, Your Brain at Work. And I'm just going to spend a minute to talk a little bit about that because your brain has two major components. It has your amygdala, which is your fight or flight organ inside your brain, and that's really designed to keep you alive. And your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your head and your front part of your brain, is really designed to help you make judgment. And you want to think of them as a teeter-totter, you know, a teeter-totter. So if your prefrontal cortex is in control, your amygdala is calm. If your amygdala is in control, your prefrontal cortex is out of control. Because the way the amygdala is designed to do it is designed to keep you alive as a survival mechanism. Whereas the prefrontal cortex is really where your high judgment and your high strategic thinking comes from. So the two absolute tricks in helping someone, including yourself, that's an overwhelm, is first and foremost to have them right. So one of the things that you can literally do is say, okay, can you just stop for a moment, and I always recommend timing this. Can you take 5 minutes and write out excuse me, I've got to stop something because Dulcie was kind enough to send me a message and my Dropbox is syncing, and that is distracting everybody. Thank you, Dulcie. And then as far as agenda goes, this is the only thing that we're talking about right now, how to talk to your lawyer when they're overwhelmed. So we're not going to talk about the screen. So when you're talking to a lawyer and they're overwhelmed, just say, well, let's just take 5 minutes and I will time it. Because sometimes for some people, like when my daughter, who's 15, says it will take 5 minutes, that could mean 50 minutes. It could mean an hour and a half. A 5-minute shower has a correlation to like a 1-hour window. But for the lawyer, if you can get them to do a 5-minute concentrated focus sprint, you're going to help them tremendously just get everything out of their brain on the paper. And what that does is it moves everything away from the amygdala, all the anxiety and concerns away from the amygdala, and pushes them into the prefrontal cortex where they can get control of them, and that's where the judgment capability of the brain resides. And then you want to ask them the following question. What are the 3 most important things? Of everything that you wrote down, what are the 3 most important? And they may do the second thing that's required to help people in overwhelm, which is speak. They may actually communicate, because if you have to write, especially handwrite, and if you have to speak, it puts your prefrontal cortex back in control. If they don't write and they don't speak, what will usually happen is the fear and anxiety will continue to slap the amygdala around, which will push more stress hormones into the body and cause more anxiety and more stress. So, this completely applies to you. It applies to anyone. It may not apply to other people that work at your firm if you don't think they have a brain, but it works with anyone that has a brain. So if you are talking to a lawyer, it's probably 3 key things that you're really helping them do. Number 1 is getting permission to helping talk to them directly. 2, coaching them through the overwhelm by giving them a 5-minute focus sprint. And 3, asking them a question, what are the most impactful things that they really need to do? And that will make a huge difference for them getting focused and getting clarity around what they need to do. It may be just really exhausting and overwhelming for them as it is. You guys can appreciate it. But you can be a real lifeline for them as far as keeping them focused. Now, my experience is if you can keep them focused, some of the stop-start behavior, some of the crisis management behaviors, and some of the behaviors that Lauren describes, will make you want to pull your hair out, will actually start to be reduced. Now, one of the techniques I've really tried to encourage lawyers to do is every Monday morning to plan out their week by using a tool called My Great Week. Now, in the Atticus world, and Dulcie, while we're on this, we might have you or Stephanie do a follow-up email to everybody on the daily checklist. So one of the things that also helps the lawyers is just taking them 5 minutes to do what we call the Atticus Daily Checklist, which is basically a really simple checklist around, what are the most important things did you have to do today? Did you complete your billing? What habit are you trying to reinforce? Did you check your voicemails? Did you take marketing activity? It's just a really simple daily checklist that's designed to help a lawyer get their brain focused when they're completely overwhelmed with everything that's going on in their life or in their practice. I'm going to stop there for a second. Lauren, do you have any feedback? Because you're probably, probably without a doubt the most experienced team leader on the call today. Do you have any feedback about that?
Not particularly. I mean, I guess that the idea of me going in when Peter is overwhelmed, typically it's me who's trying to push him to get something done,
Okay.
And he's trying to, he may be working on something for Eileen and, working on a promotional piece or something else, and I'm like, but I have a client coming in and I need you to finish this. So I think it's all about prioritizing for him, and I guess if he did a brain dump on what he needs to prioritize, that would be helpful. But sometimes I don't even think he knows what he needs to do. It just, he just gets so, when he gets in overwhelm, I think he gets forgetful sometimes, about what's really important, what's not, unless I pointed it out to him,
Yeah.
Like this person is coming in an hour. This is a priority,
Yeah, put the brochure down. They'll be here in 1 hour.
Yeah, Peter's always been the kind that, bright, shiny objects distract him easily. And, it's like, now's not the time for that. We have 6 client meetings coming and, you're calling and telling me that you want to take your son out for breakfast. No. So I don't know. Maybe nobody else has that issue, but maybe it's because Peter is, approaching that age where he's kind of checking out, that it's been more of an issue lately.
No, I think I would assert that probably most of the team leaders and key assistants on the call have the same issue with their lawyers, keeping the lawyer focused. Part of it is the communication component, just a little bit what you said. But part of it is learning a little bit how to talk to the lawyer. So I want to talk for a few minutes, just a few minutes from my perspective as an attorney on probably the 3 big secrets on talking to your lawyer in a way that won't hurt their feelings or get them upset. In the first one, I've already kind of illustrate for you, which is permission. You can really get far in life if you ask people for permission to have certain types of conversation. So if I've got, I know TJ's on the call with us, so if TJ's talking to Patty and she thinks she's having a difficult time with Patty and communicating with Patty, and she can say, Patty, do I have your permission to, really be blunt about something? And usually permission is, if you give somebody permission to give you feedback, you're going to be all ears. The second way is saying, well, would it be okay if I helped you with this? Which is another way of asking for permission. The third way, which will really flatter their ego, is, look, you've got more important things to do. That's what you pay me for. Let me take care of this, which is a great flattering one. I can be easily suckered. Dulcie will do this to me, and Stephanie, and the entire team will use this to me, and it's basically a nice way of saying, get the hell out of the way and let me do do this for you, because you don't know what the hell you're doing. So the ways that you don't want to do this is, number one is, let me tell you how you should do this, because that will do nothing to anyone but except flare up their back. Another one is, let me tell you how you're doing this wrong, or there's the right way of doing this. So you're going to completely flare up your lawyer, especially if your lawyer's stressed out. So when you're looking at how to, we could probably, Lauren, TJ, and I could probably put together a really fun PowerPoint presentation called The Care and Feeding Up Your Lawyer. And it has a lot more to do just with how you ask questions and state things.
I think that goes both ways. I think that lawyers have to learn how to talk to their key assistants and paralegals that way too.
I think that's an excellent point. Do you have any suggestions on that before we wrap up today's call?
No, I just think that I think that maybe the way I see things may be different than the way a younger person may see them, who hasn't been in an office for a long period of time like I've been here. And, sometimes, I remember we had a marketing person for a while, Janice, and she was very good at what she did, and she was about my age, and she used to complain that Peter wouldn't get things done for her, and I'd say, well, you have to nag him, you have to remind him, you have to give him dates that it has to be done by, and then remind him 6 times that date's coming. I said, you have to just, and she was like, oh, well, I can't do that. He's the attorney. And I was like, no, you can, because you need something from him, and you have permission. He gave you permission when he hired you. He said, just, you have permission to nag me, so nag him, and, I think sometimes that when we're in the coaching, and it's always, how can, we support the attorney? And sometimes I think it's like, how the heck can the attorney support us to get our work done so that we can get money in the door,
Yeah.
So it's a very symbiotic relationship, between the key assistant and the attorney. And I don't know. Sometimes I just think that gets lost.
No, I think you're right on the money. I think you're right on the money. I think there's the symbiotic nature is so powerful, and you know, I've always, from my viewpoint, talking to lawyers, I'm like, you know, I'd rather have you invest money and time and training into a tremendous key assistant or team leader than I would more attorneys, because they're worth more long term, you know, to me. I think, you know, the value that you've had to Peter over the years is remarkable. The value that TJ has to Patty, you know, it's remarkable. There's a tremendous value and stability to that. So, Lauren, thank you. Brilliant as always. Dulcie, Stephanie, anything that you guys have to say before we wrap it up for today?
No, nothing for me. It's Stephanie.
Thank you. Dulcie, anything for you?
No, nothing for me.
Good to hear that you're feeling better. At least you're still feisty. Dulcie was kind of sick earlier in the week, and we had a group call, and everybody wondered it was so quiet, and we said because Dulcie was sick, we all decided it was Dulcie was sick. So with that, everybody, thanks for attending today's call. We're a little past time, but I want to spend a few minutes to make sure we had an opportunity to complete it. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday, and we'll talk to you in the new year. Thank you, everyone.
Merry Christmas to you. Give my
Merry
best to your
Christmas
family.
to you too, Lauren. Same to
All
you.
right.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, bye, everybody. Bye.